This episode of the Security VIP Podcast is sponsored by Acre. Acre is a global leader in the delivery of integrated intelligent technologies and services. Its ComNet, OpenOptions, RS2, and Vanderbilt brands deliver advanced solutions to thousands of customers around the world. The components and systems provided by Acre's family of companies, sold through traditional distribution and integration channel partners, help secure the highest value assets of its end-user clientele, including public and private sector entities, large and small. Thank you to the Acre team, and welcome to another episode of the Security VIP Podcast. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Security VIP Podcast, the official podcast of the security industry and home of nothing but the truth. As always, I am your host, Taylor May, and on today's episode, we are sitting down with the audio kings of the security industry. That's right, Zenitel is the leading provider of crystal clear audio solutions for secure and critical intelligent communication systems. As a technology that can be overlooked in our industry, Zenitel always has a seat at the table because their product line is seen in pretty much every single vertical you can think of. As communication solutions continue to evolve, and to talk about Zenitel further, it is my pleasure to welcome and introduce the President for the Americas, Mr. Dan Rothrock, to the Security VIP Podcast today. Dan, how are we doing today, brother?
We're doing excellent. Taylor, thanks for having me on your Security VIP Podcast. Glad to be here and glad to just have some time to talk.
Of course, man. We live in a virtual world now, and it's just this is kind of our new normal, right? So we definitely appreciate you for hopping on, Dan. So maybe just tell us about your experience real quick in the industry and give us a little background.
Well, background really goes Zenitel, 30 years, right? So been with one company for 30 years, but I've had like 9 different positions inside the company, starting as a regional sales manager and doing virtually almost every position there is in sales, and now president of Zenitel for the Americas. But that part of my audio career prior to Zenitel was starting in a hi-fi store selling high-end audio equipment, and then working for speaker manufacturers, and then selling commercial equipment that you'd find in stadiums and auditoriums and that type of thing. So lifetime of audio.
Love to hear that, man. We're going to talk deeper about audio and what you guys are doing at Zenitel, and I think it's very important because I think it's sometimes overlooked, but it's very essential, especially in the world we live in today, Dan, and I think you'll agree with that. So maybe give us a background about Zenitel, what the company's all about.
Well, let's just start with the name. So Zenitel is the zenith, the very peak of top of telecommunications. So we position ourselves as an extremely high-end audio product when it comes to performance, so that you can hear, be heard, and be understood in virtually any environment. So it's all about being able to communicate and to hear each other. And Taylor, you know, when you're out traveling, audio and sound and noise is always dynamic. It's always changing. So if you want to talk to a particular point, let's say at a gate entry, it may be quiet from midnight to 6:30 in the morning, but when traffic starts, it's extremely noisy. So our product is also dynamic. It will eliminate noise. It will get louder when it needs to get louder. And it has an extremely good ability to get rid of echo cancellation. So that you can, just as we say, it's not just a tagline, but so you can hear, be heard, and understood in virtually any environment.
It's great to hear that, man. And I think, you know, you have the cameras, you've got the video intelligence, you've got the AI, but without the audio piece and the critical communication piece, then you're pretty much left in the dark. And that's where you guys pretty much fill in the gap with your solutions there at Zenitel. So, you know, with Zenitel, you know, having a seat at the table, there's no reason why critical communication solutions should not be part of the conversation in every kind of security discussion. So as a global leader in the audio space, you know, talk about some of the highlights of the product line that you guys kind of separate yourself from your other competitors in the industry?
Well, like I said, it starts with the very basics in the design principles, right? And the design principle number one is always intelligibility. If you think about it, why would you put an audio device out at a location that doesn't give you intelligibility? You know, if you put it in and you can't understand that device, it's simply a waste of money. So the number one hallmark is always design to provide the very best in audio quality that you can. And then the other thing is, let's design to make it simple. As we move forward, you know, audio years past used to be really complicated. It was like the Wizard of Oz, right? Don't pay any attention to the man behind the curtain that makes all these parts and pieces work. But now it's really straightforward. You move into an IP world, and you start to do plug and play, you start to do auto discovery. And as long as you do that and then work on good hardware, because you have to have a good speaker, you have to have a good microphone, you have to have a good frame, just like when you're building a home stereo system, those basic pieces have to be there. We focus on those. And the great thing now in the IP world again is software. We can enhance the audio quality through digital sound processing and like I said before, eliminate noise, use higher power amplifiers than we were able to use before, use a clean Class D amplifier. And so on a product side, you just have a product that comes out. And if people talk about the Turbine series that we do, everybody talks about the crystal clear audio and how easy it is to understand.
It's great to hear that. And Dan, with your experience in the industry, man, the last 30 so years, definitely you've got definitely years on myself here. But, you know, you have probably seen Zenitel evolve throughout, you know, those 2 decades quite dramatically. So maybe talk about that further, maybe the 3 phases of the security industry, not only from Zenitel's perspective, but just the security in general. You know, I had a conversation with Tim Palmquist the other day, and he talked about the analog age to the IP age to, you know, everything off-prem now with the cloud solutions, and even here at AnyVision, we're doing AI, everything on the edge. So it's crazy how much this industry has evolved, but you've been in the industry for so long over the last 30 years. So maybe talk about those phases for us and what that means.
Yeah, I'm not sure I've been in it longer than Tim Palmquist, but probably. You know, that what we talked about before, Taylor, is what I refer to the 3 waves of security. So in the beginning, you know, we had locks and keys and that type of thing. But as we moved into the electronic part of security, you have access control. And access control was really kind of the center of everything. It was a database that held everything about permissions to let people come into your building or keeping people out of your building. And everything was centered around that hub. To Tim's point the other day, and I haven't heard that podcast, but I'll listen to it, but I'm sure he talked about the evolution of going from analog to IP and how that changed dramatically the whole video world. And then video became just this driver for our security industry to expand. People wanted to be able to see all over their property. They want to see the entrance. They want to see the gates. They want to see the warehouse. And we're such a visual society that really took off at a great speed. So it's kind of the second wave, right? You have the access control. Then you have this wave that comes in with video, and it came in like a tsunami. It was big. The third wave is the one that's going to sneak up on people. And you've mentioned it a couple times already in this podcast that audio is the left out or sometimes overlooked piece of security. But if I have access control so I can keep you out or I can invite you in and I have video and I can't see you, it goes back to your point earlier, Taylor. If I don't have the ability to speak and I don't have the ability to hear, I really don't know what's going on in that situation and I can't be proactive. If I can talk to someone, if they can hear me, I can be proactive. And so anytime you deploy access control and video, audio should be deployed as well. Any place that you want to see, you probably also want to be able to talk to that person, or a place where you're controlling entrance and egress, you probably want to be able to talk to those people. So you want to put audio there. So that was a piece for us where we fought to get a place at the table in the security world. But the next wave, this is where this is going. The next wave is going to be audio as the center hub of security. And I've been saying this for a while, and some people take a look at that and they go, what are you talking about? But if you just for a minute think about what we went through shortly with short-lived span with millennials. And everybody was saying, millennials don't talk. We have to find a different way to engage them because they text everything, right? And then something really interesting happened with things called Siri and Alexa and Cortana and all these different pieces where we start talking to machines. And everybody started to pay attention to the age of voice, as it were. And if we go backwards now, and you would have to see reruns of this, but I'm sure you've seen reruns of Star Trek, where the captain's standing there and he's given voice commands.
Right.
They're not touching anything.
Right.
They're not physically doing something. They're just talking. And that's where we're going to go with AI and natural language processing and machine learning, is we're going to pick up and audio will start to be the driving hub to access control and video. Not that their position changes in the overall scope, other than the control will just be by voice. And that's the third wave.
Bold statements and words of wisdom from Mr. Dan Rothrock himself. I love it. And I really agree with what he just said there, guys. You know, the access control game evolving, the video surveillance world evolving, the audio world is consistently evolved now since COVID-19. And now it's going to be the center hub, Dan is saying, for the security industry. And I have to tend to agree with him. That's a bold statement to make, but I have to agree, because without effective critical communication, guys, none of the other parts that I just mentioned, none of the other phases that Dan just mentioned happen, right? They don't occur. So that's kind of like that domino effect. You know, once audio is there, everything else will fall in line and fall into place. So Dan, you know, just a side question, brother. You know, if you had to pick one access control solution and one VMS solution, who would you pick and why?
Well, here's what I would do. And I'm not skirting the issue of picking one, right? But there's a number of good products out there, and to go back to you use a friend of mine's words, community, right? It is really what I look for. It's open platforms, being able to tie in other things that you can use. And I'll just say this: our product fits a lot of verticals, and it fits a lot of applications. And I want every opportunity to see if I fit your particular application. But you know what? No product fits every spot, including mine. And part of our responsibility in the security industry is when our product fits, we should fight really hard to get in there. But when our product doesn't fit, I should just be open, transparent, honest, and say, you know what, Taylor, for that, I don't fit. But and I should also be able to be knowledgeable enough to go, this is what fits. And here's a friend of mine, even if a competitor, here's a friend of mine that can help you out and give you that information. And I believe that's the same case when it comes to access control and video. No particular platform fits everything. So you really need to do your due diligence. And then the one piece that I think gets overlooked constantly in the security world is we get so wrapped up in feature function set that we don't investigate, who am I doing business with? What is the personality of that company? Do their goals and their mission statements align with mine? And I think that's just as important as the product is.
This is why I have guys like Dan on this podcast series, guys, because Dan, you're not the only one that said this before in my previous episodes, but a guy named JC Powell, VP of Sales for Boone said the same thing to me on episode 7 of this podcast series. He said, Taylor, people buy from people and people buy from people who they trust. And if our solution at Boone does not fit into what the end user is looking for, it is our job as advisors and consultants in the industry to recommend a solution that's going to work best for them down the road. Even though it kills us inside, the sales guy, the salesman inside of us that wants to sell, but at the end of the day, guys, it's not what it's about. We have to be trusted advisors. We have to set this tone, this mentality in the industry that, hey, this is a solution that I recommend. It's going to save your headaches down the road, especially if that's what the end user is looking for. So, Dan, thank you for that. And Dan also brought up the open platform kind of mentality, open concept mentality. And he went around that question with the access control VMS favored solution, but I definitely appreciate that because he revolved it around an open stereotype, an open community. And that's just what Tim Palmquist said yesterday. It's what Matt Barnett said on Mercury, RS2, open options, the Genetechs of the world. It's all about this open community that we fit around and have this holistic approach. So Dan, words of wisdom. So thank you so much for that. And, moving on from that, COVID-19, man, I ask this on every episode of my podcast. It's, I spoke with Tim yesterday. I told him it's the elephant in the room. It definitely is the elephant in the room. It's something we deal on a day-to-day basis now. So talk about what you guys are doing at Zenitel since COVID-19, maybe some new things or maybe features or what certain verticals you guys are now in plain Intel with that you weren't so hot in before COVID-19. What has that been like for you guys?
Yeah, won't it be nice when you're doing a podcast and you don't have to bring it up?
That'd be lovely. That'd be awesome. Maybe
Yeah,
next year, right?
and we're looking forward to that when that time happens. But the COVID-19 thing really it affects a lot of things, and this goes back to who do you do business with and why. And it's not just products and not just verticals, but early on here at Zenitel in Americas, we recognized what was coming. And we made some early steps. We got everybody situated so they could work from home, and got them all set up, including our technicians, where they have tech equipment and benches and everything they need at home to still service and take care of our customers. We took some proactive steps to really up our inventory levels in case there was any supply chain issues or problems. So we've been able to take care of everybody as our customers' needs have come up. And so that was step one, right? Get the company ready to take care of you. And we did that and did it quickly. But the other part then became, what about some of the pain points in the industry, building safety, security, healthcare. So one of our big verticals is healthcare. And of course, we want to protect all those people that are on the front line dealing with COVID. And what's one of the biggest things you can do? It's social distancing and creating space. So with a clean room station that we make, it has a complete microbial cover on the front of it. And you can wash it down with chemical, you can fog the room with chemical, and you can just clean it and keep it disinfected. With that station, we were able to set up remote distant communication. So instead of a person having to go to you and talk to you face to face when you want to check in, if you want to come in for testing, or if you need something else at the hospital, I'm able to be out on my own side, my own room, and we're able to do communication through a clean room station on one side and maybe a turbine station on the outside, which can talk loud, clear, and adjust for the ambient noise around you. So we saw that spike up quite a bit, Taylor, for a solution. But I think one of the reasons we also saw it spike up was our people were ready for that. It's not the first time that we've had an infectious disease issue. We did this with Ebola, and our regional up in the Northeast was extremely active in setting up pods for the companies that were dealing with that at the time. So, there's some history that goes into being prepared for an emergency as well.
Love to hear that. And yeah, healthcare has definitely taken on a different, responsibility now, especially with COVID-19. It's, beds are being taken up. People are working more, just consistent hours. So they have to rely on certain technology to actually do their job more effectively now, which is why Zenitel is playing a key factor in that, not just from their perspective, but also in the AI realm. Here at AnyVision, we definitely specialize in the healthcare sector as well. So
let me add one other little quick piece,
yeah, go ahead.
Taylor. The other piece that has just taken off is, of course, touchless, right?
Right.
You don't want to be touching something that you don't have to touch. And um, there's a number of companies that make switches and pieces that can be tied into your system that allows your communication device to become touchless. But we also found a great switch, which we now integrate into our system. And the key with it is it's a 5-volt switch. So a lot of switches available out in the marketplace that are 12 volts,
Right.
but off of the intercom, there's 5 volts that is on the station itself. So it's a seamless piece to tie the switch in, just a wave of a hand, and communication started. And then on your end, you can just do a door release through the intercom to let the person in if they qualify to come in.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Touchless and kind of seamless, frictionless solutions have been a hot demand too, with not just with healthcare, but a span of different verticals. I know even professional sports, they're talking about using that now too. So, you mentioned some of your force multipliers. So let's talk about that further, Dan. Some of your integration partners, your force multipliers that actually promote you guys. So talk about what this means in the market and kind of y'all's footprint in the industry when it comes to guys like Milestone, Open Options, RS2, things of that nature. What does that mean?
Well, let's go back to the first, second, third wave, right? First wave, access control really driving our business. And then the second wave of video people driving our business. And today, while we're waiting for the third wave to come in and audio to be the center hub, there's still a huge market influenced by the people who are driving access control and video. And if you look at what those companies are doing, more and more, it's not just access control as we knew it. It's a platform. It starts to tie in visitor management. It ties in HR. It gives you data points, right? Going back to the expression of data is the new oil. That's what we want to collect. It's a great way to collect data, and it's a great way to build a platform. So as you look at the platform that's being built, it goes back to what you were saying earlier. If you don't have audio and I don't have the ability to talk to somebody and I don't have the ability to see someone, then we really have a disconnect. So working with the leading access control manufacturers and the leading, hang on just a second, we got a little binging there.
Sales call for Dan all the time. He's always selling. They got people blowing him up left and right.
Yeah. Hey, you'll be glad to know too. I'll go on record for this that it was actually my boss, Lars Paulson, calling me. So I'm not taking his call so I can talk to you, Taylor.
Oh, did you hear that? You heard that first, guys. Dan ignored his boss for SecurityVIP. That's on the record now. That's on the record.
Yeah, but there's probably a new one, right?
Yeah, that's a new one.
Let's see, where were we? Oh, we're talking about the platforms. Without the audio there, you still don't have a proactive system. You have a reactive system. And so we're engaged. The way that helps is with the close relationships we have with access control providers, the relationships with the video providers. It creates a market influence and an engine that we can tie to, and that we can keep our technology lockstep with those people as well.
Dan, you and I share the same mentality. And you mentioned it countless times just now, having a holistic approach, but a proactive mentality when it comes to certain verticals. And we find ourselves, or at least in my experience, I'm sure in your experience the last 30 years, we find certain verticals that fall into that reactive approach to the industry where it takes something for them to actually do something, to implement something such as God forbid, a mass shooting at a school district or someone stealing thing at a car dealership or, what have you. It takes some kind of event like that to happen for them to actually do something. To maybe talk about why it's so important to have this kind of proactive mindset when it comes to protecting your people, property, and premises. Why is that important?
Well, there's a couple pieces to that, Taylor. And One is, and we're going to be doing Zenitel's going to be featuring a webinar in about a week that's on this very subject. The first thing in protecting, when you look at building security and safety, the first thing is you don't know what you're protecting against. You can prepare and think I'm preparing for an active shooter. You can prepare and think I'm preparing for a fire or an evacuation. But until an event takes place, you really don't know what you're dealing with. So if everything is reactive, it's a kind of a canned presentation of, if this happens, then I do this. When you add voice, you add some flexibility to shifting with the circumstances that are going on, and you can change direction exactly as things are happening. So you're doing it real time, because you don't know what risk you're really preparing for. The things you've prepared for are certainly beneficial because they teach you certain things, you're prepared for certain things, and you have some muscle memory of what should I do if this happens. But this proactive piece has to be there, because you'll never know exactly how the events are going to go down on your property.
I agree, and certain certain clients get that approach, and certain clients do not, or it takes them a while to actually understand what that means. So, Dan, you mentioned you guys having a webinar in the next week or so, and featuring some of your key end users. So maybe talk about some of those key end users you guys are going to have on your webinars, and kind of what their mentality and experience has been with you guys so far.
Yeah, we're going to have Seattle Pacific University on, and we're doing it in two different sections. The one will be the unknown risk, right, that we were just talking about, and how do you try to prepare for that. You look at things that happen, because you mentioned some people get it and some people don't, right? If you have active shooter event happen in the news, you get this spike of calls of people trying to protect over active shooter. Or if you don't know, what do you do if you have an earthquake, right? So Seattle Pacific is going to be a really interesting discussion, because they've had to adjust to different issues in that area. Up in the Seattle area, there is a concern about earthquake. There was a location off campus that had a 4-alarm fire that they had to respond to on their property. They did at one time have an active shooter incident. So we'll be walking through this whole, how do you prepare for what you don't know to prepare for. So that'll be kind of fun, and it'll be an interesting part of technology as well, right? How do technologies blend with each other, and how do you take access control and then tie it to video, and then take audio and tie it into the access control and video platform again, and make it a holistic approach so you can shift on the fly and adjust for that type of thing. And then the following week, we're going to do a follow-up with Seattle Pacific, and we'll talk about choosing technology. What was your criteria? What was your scorecard? What did you look at in order to protect the entire campus? And I think what'll be fun with this, Taylor, is it's not a Zenitel-centric presentation. It's an event presentation and just a conversation. And then the third part of this series will be with Jonathan Harris from Guidepost, that will talk about clients and customers and how they guide them through the steps of security to build a system that works for that individual. One of the challenges we all have is budget. If we could just do what we want, it would be so easy to deploy something instantly. But people have to work in a migration plan. So Jonathan will walk us through some of the pitfalls and hazards that you have in picking equipment, looking at where you're the weakest and you're most vulnerable, and how you can protect those areas so that you can be resilient during an event.
Yeah, a couple good points there, Dan. Not only just being proactive, but a key I think, crucial component of Zenitel is all about response time. And if you have an effective response time to an active shooter or workstore event, I can't tell you how many times, Santa Fe ISD is one of my clients at AnyVision. And I'd ask them all the time, was this kid that, shot off to school, killed 10, 12 people, did he have previous issues? Did he have, mental issues? And you ask any of the kids, you ask any of the teachers, the staff, and even some of the parents will say, yeah, that kid was weird or he was a little off. Well, why wasn't he looked at as like a high risk, student? Why wasn't he monitored up to a certain extent? Social media, whatever it may be, he was wearing a trench coat. I mean, in 100-degree weather, you think something's going on there. So, guys, we have to recognize these kind of things first, then implement certain technologies like Zenitel when it comes to response time and effective communication to make sure we're actually creating a safer, more secure tomorrow. Because, guys, it's at the end of the day, from not only our level, from the end user level to the parent, teacher, staff, from a K through 12 perspective, it is your responsibility to make sure that your kid is growing into a certain safe environment. And that's, we can preach it all day long, but if you're person in charge that does not understand that kind of mentality, then there's not a lot that we can do on our end if we don't educate those guys and get them the right policies and procedures in place. So,
something as simple as see something, say something.
Right.
And that phrase is easy to say, but it's harder in practice to get people to do it. We were taught from young kids, don't be a tattletale.
Right.
And this is different. When you do see something, we should be proactive also and say something or react. Nothing wrong with checking something out.
100% agree with that. And Dan, kind of moving on, Zenitel, man, what is next for the company? What can we expect from your end users and partners? What are they going to be looking for you guys in the next couple of months, couple of years?
What you're going to see is a couple things. Obviously, in the voice world, you want to be mobile, flexible. So you'll see our mobile app evolve and become have more features, more functions, more capability in it. Everybody loves their Apple phone or their Android, whichever one they like. So just making sure that people are mobile, but they can still get the feature function set that they would expect from the Zenitel product that's at your door, right? So you'll see more flexibility and more mobile solutions. You'll see the turbine family of product expand, and you'll see more products that are driven by turbines with the same kind of expectation of audio quality. You'll see things start to evolve into this third wave where you're working with AI and machine learning and NLP. And all of those things will start coming out, in steps and progress. Our goal isn't always to be first to market, because sometimes there's a risk with that. But it's to get it right and deliver what is a true solution and will help our CSOs and the people that are using the product really protect their people and their property. So those are the kind of things that you'll see coming over the next couple months.
Exciting things that happen. And just to Dan's point, reputation is everything in this industry. Ever since COVID-19 came out, a bunch of manufacturers came out with some kind of thermal fever solution, and it definitely hurt, I think, some of these manufacturers' reputations because they made these claims. And Tim and I spoke about this yesterday, in our podcast episode. So trusted advisors, trusted companies, trusted manufacturers, and trusted professionals like Dan and his team at Zenitel is why we have people on this podcast series. So Dan, last and final question, brother. This is my 60-second hot seat. You are the president of the company, but now you are a salesman. So you're going to be a sales rep for me and give me your best 60-second pitch of why Zenitel. Let's hear it.
Well, it goes back really to the second question you asked on the podcast, right? Who is Zenitel? What is Zenitel? And we're the zenith, the very peak of telecommunications. You're putting and deploying an audio device out in the field. Your expectation is that you can hear, be heard, be understood, and yet you can be heard in virtually any environment, even if it's dynamic and the noise around it is changing, the environment is changing, that we can still deliver crystal clear audio. And that's what we do every time. So if you want to count on an audio device, count on Zenitel.
Love it. I love it, man. These get better every episode, man. Tim was great the other day. I had Chuck O'Leary on. He did great. I mean, these just get
Hey,
better.
you're putting
every
me.
episode.
There's some pretty heady competition there. I think Tim is probably one of the best guys in our industry for talking and delivering content. Really, and Chuck's got it down. Both really good people.
I agree. So, Dan, what's that contact information, man? How can more people hear more about Zenitel?
Well, it's easy. You can go to Zenitel.com. You can always email me, dan.rothrock@zenitel.com, and I'll make sure that we allocate the proper resource to get in contact with you and take care of you.
Awesome, Dan. Well, appreciate it, brother. And for those that have questions, comments, or concerns, please feel free to email me at info@securityvip.net. Once again, that's info@securityvip.net. A couple of different ways to stay connected here on the Security VIP podcast. First one, to connect to us and follow us on LinkedIn for all the recent updates and announcements about our VIP guest. Subscribe to us on YouTube to see this episode of Dan and I, and listen to us on Spotify.com when you guys are on the road. Dan, thank you so much, man. We'll catch you guys on the next one.
Thanks, Taylor.